Welcome to Film Witch, a podcast with me, Sandy Settle, practicing pagan witch and tarot reader for over a decade, and a big fan of films. Here I talk about movies, their intersections with witchcraft and femininity, and whatever else I have on my mind, which is usually a lot. Blessed be, come in and sit for a spell. And please, rate and review me on Apple, follow me on YouTube and Spotify, and share it with someone you think might enjoy it. It helps way more than you might realize, and it means everything to me. You can also find me on Instagram and on Letterboxd at FilmWitchPod. Please consider joining my Patreon, which is the best thing you can do to help this podcast continue. From 2025, Baron Victor Frankenstein, in his hubris, discovers a method by which to reanimate the dead. His creature, however, is far more powerful and far more human than he bargained for. Guillermo del Toro's dream project is oh so radiantly, finally, exquisitely alive. Hey everybody, welcome back to Film Witch Pod. I am very excited today to be speaking with one of my mutuals on Letterboxd, Charisse Phernetton. And I am very excited that you told me that you would be on the pod with me for this particular episode, Charisse, because I think of anyone on Letterboxd, perhaps you are the most enthusiastic and dare I say a bit of an expert now on this film. I noticed you before I even sat down and watched Frankenstein, which sadly I missed in the theater like so many people and had to watch on Netflix. I noticed you logging it over and over and over and over. And this was like when it was only in theaters, you know, and I knew you weren't faking this, you know, I knew you were actually going to the theater every time you logged this film. You weren't like, you know, those people on Letterboxd who like log a film that's like not even out yet and just to like leave a funny comment on it.
Oh yeah, for sure. Or the people who will claim that they watched like movies 1,000 times in a year.
I haven't noticed that. I didn't know that was a thing. Well, yeah, clearly that's not possible.
Yeah, there's one who like logged, what's that movie? That Luca Guadagnino movie with Timothée Chalamet. The cannibal one. There was someone who like... Bones and All. Yeah. There's someone who like... I saw a photo on Twitter or X where they logged it like thousands of times and it was insane.
Well, you didn't log this film that many times. You logged it like maybe like 5 times. But I noticed, and I was purposely avoiding looking at any reviews, so I wasn't reading what you had written. But I was like, it reminded me of last year when Nosferatu came out. And I remember you went to see Nosferatu a lot.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I think
that was like, I turned that into like a game where I was trying to see it at as many different theaters around Minneapolis as I could. So I went to a bunch of movie theaters that I had never been to before.
Oh, that's rad. That's a great idea to, if you really love a film and you want to catch it as many times as you can, just going to get different theaters to get a slightly different experience every time. I really miss going to the theater. I have a toddler, so we are not making it to the theater much these days. Usually only when one of our mothers is babysitting, which is not very often, sadly. They don't live close by. So, but yeah, I was like living vicariously through you. So, I mean, I guess, okay, I want to ask you about some of your experiences with this film. But first of all, I wanted to open our conversation with 2 quotes from Guillermo that I thought were great about this film. The first one is from that documentary that Netflix posted. I think it's called Anatomy. Oh, it's called The Anatomy Lesson.
Oh, right. That's right.
And this quote is from that documentary where he's talking about the film. He said, part of the appeal of the book is that it's like a teenager that asks too many questions and you get irritated because they're very smart. The book has that fidgety sort of energy. It wants to question capitalism. It wants to question, who am I? Why am I here? What is my purpose? What is the world? And I wanted to capture that. I thought that was a great quote of just overall all of his ambitions with this, all the philosophical questions and the narrative questions in it. And here's the other quote. And this is maybe my favorite quote I've heard him say in conversations about this film, because I think it really gets at the essence of something that a lot of people maybe are missing and or a lot of people clearly find polarizing about this film. And he said, it's important to not be afraid of emotion, which I could not forget that quote. It just stuck out in my mind so much. I don't know how you feel, but I feel like that's really like the heart of his version of this story is how important it is to not be afraid of emotion.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like he talked about how he wanted this to be an opera, and how when he was making it, he was talking it up to Oscar Isaac about how it should be like a telenovela, which I think you see a lot of in Oscar Isaac's performance, particularly.
Yeah, definitely. I love that you said that, because I have felt very strongly since I watched it. I watched it 2 times now, and not as many as you, but I got two under my belt, and I feel like there's like a really kind of important, maybe difficult to articulate aura of obviously Guillermo's own ethnicity, and also the fact that he cast Oscar in the role of Victor Frankenstein as kind of an extension of himself. And obviously then bringing, these cultural aspects to this new interpretation of this story that I honestly find very moving. And I think it's very important to this particular version. So I'm so glad that you said that, that Oscar was thinking of telenovelas, because that's a cultural thing, right? That's specific to the culture in which these 2 men were raised in. And I think it brings like a whole new interesting nuance and layer to like how this story is being told. And the heightened emotion of it, yeah.
Yeah, when I just watched the movie again on Saturday, and I saw it at the TCL Chinese Theater, and afterwards, Guillermo del Toro did a Q&A, and he said that he specifically wanted a Latin Victor Frankenstein as a tribute to like Gothic stories of the past, and how they mostly took place in like he called it swarthy countries, which is just like the Mediterranean. Like he talked about like the Italian and Castle of Otranto, which are both in Italy, and then the Monk, which is in Spain. And it's really interesting because Oscar is obviously Latin. He was born in Guatemala. But then also you got Mia Goth, who is Brazilian, and Jacob Elordi, his father is born in Basque, I believe, which is part of Spain.
Yeah, I remember reading about that briefly. I don't know if that, maybe it's, I wonder, to the extent that the larger cast has Latin roots, if Guillermo was really cognizant of that, or if that just happened to be the way that shook out. I always assumed that was purposeful with Oscar Isaac specifically, but that's great that he got so many people with Latinx roots, in the film, because I do feel like it's clearly important in this version of his story. But I would love it if you, at this point, want to tell me anything you feel like sharing about that experience going to the TCL Chinese. I saw that you had logged the film and you had, kind of mentioned that. And I know you're from the Minneapolis area. So and that's obviously in LA. So I was curious about how that came about, and what made you decide you wanted to do that.
Yeah, so they did a screening on Halloween, which I was really jealous of everybody who got to go to that, because all the videos I saw, it just looked so cool. Like everybody was dressed up, and they just had all these amazing decorations outside. And so I was like, and also I never got to see it in IMAX, because the only IMAX theaters here in Minneapolis are at the AMC theaters, which don't show Netflix movies. So it was just an opportunity to see it in IMAX. And then also on top of that, they had the Q&A with Guillermo del Toro, which I wanted to see. And so I just booked a flight. Like a few years ago, I made like I had like an epiphany where I'm like, I can just do what I want. Like there was an event happening in Boston one year, and I was like, I really want to go to that. Yeah. And I was like, I can go to that if I want to go to that.
Yeah, you're
like, what's stopping me?
Yeah, exactly. That's so funny when that happens, as an adult. You're like, wait a second. I'm not a kid anymore. I don't have to ask my mom.
Yeah, I'm a grown person with grown person money now. Like, I can do
absolutely.
what I want.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and it was actually my second trip to LA this year for something Frankenstein related, because I also went to the Netflix Tudum event where they premiered the trailer. So that was really cool to see that live.
Wow. I remember like maybe last year when your bio was like the Frankenstein movie directed by Guillermo del Toro starring Oscar Isaac is already my favorite movie. This is like long before this movie came out, right? And it was only like announced.
Yeah, I think I put that as my bio like 2 years ago.
Yeah, I remember it was your bio for a while, and I'm glad that you like from the beginning you were like, "This is my jam. This is my movie. I'm gonna carve my schedule out for this movie."
Yeah, because I
appreciate it.
Yeah, it's not just a combo of things that I love. It's a combination of the things that I love the most.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, I'm a huge Frankenstein fan. Like, I have a huge collection of... I collect hardcover editions of Frankenstein.
Ooh.
And it's been my favorite novel for the longest time. Guillermo del Toro is my favorite director. I love all of his movies so much. And then also Oscar Isaac is just... He's my crush.
Yeah.
my number one celebrity crush. And so, yeah, like 2 years ago... Or when was that? It was December 2022, so it was 3 years ago. There was a photo posted online of Guillermo del Toro and Oscar Isaac, and I was like, oh my god, what if that means they're doing a movie together? And then the next day, it was announced that it was Frankenstein. I was like, the movie gods are coming together to give me exactly what I want. And it's just perfect.
Ain't that great? You're like, is this real life?
Exactly. It still feels surreal. Like, I feel like I manifested it.
Yeah, absolutely. So I remember another review of this you posted, because you've posted several at this point, and in one of them you said that you had met Guillermo very briefly in the past and had said something to him about hoping that he would be able to make this.
Yeah, in 2017, he was here for the At Home with Monsters exhibit at the MIA, which is a local art gallery. And there was like 30 tickets available for like a book signing. And I was lucky enough to get one of those tickets. And by lucky, I mean I went to that website as soon as they went on sale, like a Swiftie trying to get tickets for the Eras tour.
Absolutely. You're like, I'm making this happen. I feel that. Yeah. That was me recently getting the new Stevie Nicks doll. I'm a huge Stevie Nicks fan.
Oh, wow.
And like, she has 2 Barbie dolls, and one just came out a couple weeks ago, and like, it's so cutthroat. Charisse, like, I had to like, it was a whole thing, but I feel you about being like, I am gonna be first in line if it fucking kills me. That was me with that doll, so yeah, can relate.
Yeah. So I checked out the exhibit. It was full of lots of cool stuff. Like, you got to see the costumes from Crimson Peak, and there was just lots of life-size figures of like the Pale Man from Pan's Labyrinth, and then also the Faun. And there was a whole room that was all Frankenstein stuff. Like, there was a life-size figure of Boris Karloff and Elsa Lanchester as, the monster and the bride. And, that big, giant Karloff face that you usually see in photos of Bleak House.
Yeah, in Bleak House.
And lots of, like, Bernie Wrightson artwork of Frankenstein. It was just incredible.
See that him like buying stuff like that, or like finding, like original Bernie artwork and stuff like that. Really, that's I would love to see that.
Yeah, there's a local bookstore here in the Twin Cities called Open Skies, and the owner has a bunch. Well, not a bunch, but he has some Bernie Wrightson like original artwork that I got to see when I was there sometime in the past few months, because they had like a Frankenstein movie night that I went to. And so that was really cool. And but yeah, after the exhibit, I I went and stood in line for the book signing. I had him sign the like book that went with the event.
Yeah, I have that book also. I remember when I didn't get to see the exhibit, but I do have the book.
Yeah, and when I was waiting in line, they like gave me a little card that said like write your name on it and write what you want him to write in the book. I was like, I have to choose what he writes? Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I would have been fine if he just wrote to Charisse from Guillermo del Toro, but I didn't want to write that because I thought that would be kind of lame. So I was looking through my photos of the exhibit because there was like quotes on the walls, and so I just picked one that was from Hellboy, which is in the absence of light, darkness prevails.
Nice.
And so awesome. When I went up to the table, he like wrote that in the book, and he's like, "It's so true."
Love it.
Yeah, and so what I've said to him was, I told him how much I love the exhibit and everything, and I told him I really hope you get to make your Frankenstein movie one day. And he said, maybe someday.
Oh, little did he know.
Yeah. So I'd like to think.
Line.
Yeah, I'd like to think that I was at least a small part in making it happen.
Yeah, you were absolutely part of that manifestation, 100%. It really was all because of you.
I'd like to think so.
Yeah, that's amazing. I just loved that. When I read what you had written, I just thought that was so wonderful. So thank you for sharing that story with us.
Yeah, for sure. It's just incredible. I looked at some of my old tweets because I wanted to see like when the first time was that I mentioned Guillermo del Toro possibly making Frankenstein, and the oldest one I found is back from 2013. And what I said was, I wonder if Guillermo del Toro will ever get to make Frankenstein. And so even at that point, it was something that I had been waiting for a while.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, clearly it was on your mind since you thought to even kind of articulate that to him. I'm sure that meant a lot to him at the time, honestly. Just well wishes, I think means a lot to artists. Hearing other people are hoping or gunning for you, they're hoping you get to do the things you want to do.
Yeah, for sure. And it's been something he's been wanting to make for like 20 years. Like, at one point it was going to have Doug Jones as the creature. At one point he talked about making it into a mini series. And it's wonderful that it's finally out there in the world. Yeah.
I'm so enamored with it. I think it's my favorite film of the year, and I had a feeling, a hunch that it would be. I'm sure you felt the same way. You knew. And it's kind of like, I agree with you about, like last year with Nosferatu, I also felt that, I was like, I'm going to love this film. It's going to be for me, as you get older and as you've watched a lot of films, especially as a film fan, I think you kind of like have a sixth sense about the things you're going to like versus the things that you don't a lot of the time. It's not always 100% accurate, but with certain filmmakers, and you were saying that Guillermo's your favorite filmmaker, it's like you're pretty sure he's not going to let you down at this point. But yeah, I don't know. I'd be interested to hear what you think, but I also think that Jacob Elordi is the performance of the year from everything that I've seen thus far. Like specifically his performance. For me, and I feel like maybe a part of it is like how in love with like Bernie Wrightson's art I've always been for this story. Like that's always been kind of like my favorite version of this up until now is like Shelley's book with Bernie Wrightson's illustrations. That's kind of always been my definitive version. And I feel like Elordi is the closest thing to that we've gotten as far as the way the creature looks and kind of the romanticism of everything. Curious how you feel about that.
Oh, absolutely. I think he just does a phenomenal job, like both in the performance and just how he looks. Like I knew it was going to be based on Bernie Wrightson because that's something Guillermo del Toro has always talked about, like in the different iterations of Frankenstein that he talked about making. It was always going to be based on Bernie Wrightson's artwork. Mm-hmm. And so it's just cool to see that, because not just the makeup, but there's so many shots in the movie that are taken directly from Bernie Wrightson's illustrations. And yeah, it's just with Jacob Elordi, I always thought I I knew he would look the part because I think he kind of looks a bit Karloff-esque.
Yeah, and he's so tall.
Really, for sure. And like he lost so much weight for that that Australian miniseries he was in where he played a prisoner of war. So he's kind of skeletal, like you see in Bernie Wrightson's artwork.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and definitely the performance of the year for me too. Like, I feel like this is going to be one of those performances that inspires other actors to want to become actors. Like, you see that about like Charles Laughton in Hunchback of Notre Dame, or John Hurt in The Elephant Man. Those are two performances with like extensive prosthetics that have inspired a lot of actors to want to be actors. And I feel like that's going to be the same way for Jacob Elordi in this movie.
Yeah, I think so too. I think it's really going to stand the test of time. You know, like, well, we could talk a little bit about kind of the reception to this film in a general sense. But I think, you know, particularly that performance is really going to outlive any kind of like criticisms people have of this film or anything like that. I think it's going to be one of, like you were saying, one of those performances that inspires many people in this particular craft in the future. And I think, you know, the way that people kind of watch like James Whale's version of Frankenstein now, you know, I think far in the future, I really do feel very strongly that this one's going to stand the test of time. And a lot of people are going to feel that way about Elordi's performance in this role as well. It's a very different take on the creature, you know, so we can have both. I think we can enjoy both and be inspired by both. And I think it's on par with that performance from Karloff. I really do. And I really hope he is nominated for an Oscar. I don't think he would win just because the Oscars, you know how they are about horror and fantasy and things like that. But I would love to see him nominated. I know when we're recording this, the nominations haven't come out yet. So
it's still very exciting they got nominated for a Golden Globe. Him and
Oscar.
It is,
yeah. Yeah, an Oscar as well. I was so happy to see how many nominations it got at the Golden Globes. I know it's not as, you know, high profile these days as the Oscars, but I think I felt the same way. So there were several themes that I pinpointed in Guillermo's film that I think are not necessarily as present in the novel, but nevertheless, I really like them about his version of this story, and I just wanted to hear your thoughts on those things. And so I felt like heritage is a really big theme in this, as well as religion in a more subtextual way. And then familial tension specifically, I think, was very much so on Guillermo's mind when he was making this. He has mentioned this in like every single interview he's done about this film that I've watched, of a relationship between father and son. Not only his own relationship with his father, but his relationship with his children as well was on his mind when he finally got to actualize this film. And yeah, I thought, you know, there's maybe a more complex conversation than I personally am not, you know, I don't have the credentials to kind of go into the nuances of the conversation about Latinx heritage and Guillermo's Mexican heritage being a heavy influence on this particular film. But I do feel like that's present, and I do think it's worth mentioning, you know, and maybe why like a film like this feels so kind of not only the legacy of Frankenstein for me, but also like this present moment and like what's going on in the world, that it felt so kind of revelatory or cathartic to see a movie like this that's helmed by a Mexican man and starring a man from Guatemala and all these things, you know, and the way that he chooses to end the film, rooted in forgiveness. And yeah, I don't know. If you have any thoughts about any of that? I mean, the other thing I wanted to say, you know, is kind of before you speak is knowing that Mary Shelley wrote this when she was 18, and that at that point she had already lost her first child with Percy Shelley. And that was obviously very much so on her mind. Obviously, it had to have been, right, when she wrote this story because of its themes, kind of like the nature of life or giving life versus life being taken away, things like that. And and also that, there were these larger things going on in the culture surrounding her at the time, like the idea of Galvanism, with like that just being something that people would talk about, in settings with their friends or with other family members, that was just like a kind of hip, cool, weird thing that was going on. And that must have been mentioned to her at some point, right? That like this idea of like animals being reanimated by electricity, and that things of an occult nature were also very much in vogue at the time, and that's in the society that she was part of. So those things were obviously on her mind. But I think it's so fascinating the ways that Guillermo kind of like, I'm sure that there's some people who feel kind of disgruntled about this, because I've noticed some rumblings of that. That some people seem to feel as though he changed the themes too much. Between kind of like her original text and then his own thoughts and feelings and the things that he wanted to discuss in the text and the subtext of his film. I was curious if you had any feelings or thoughts about any of that.
Well, going back to like the cultural aspects, like in that Q&A that I saw, he talked about how in Mexican culture, the father is God, which is something you see a lot in the scenes with Victor and the creature. Like, it's like how Elizabeth says, like, the name Victor, for the time being, that means everything to him. Because Victor at that time is his whole world, because he's all that he knows. Yeah, I just thought that was a really interesting thing for him to say. Yeah, he said that the father is God and the mother is the chancla.
Yeah, definitely. I think you can see that very much so in the way that he interprets this subject matter. What do you think about the delineation maybe between the feminine perspective from Shelley herself and obviously Guillermo having to approach this from a more masculine perspective? I personally, just to give you my own feeling on that, I didn't mind that Guillermo, kind of came from a much more personal perspective with the subject matter. I think we have so many interpretations of this story already, right? And many of them have, aspects that are really well done, and lots of, there's no like definitive version still, which is maybe what some people feel kind of disgruntled about, in that there's no like totally faithful interpretation to the text still. And I think a lot of people were maybe hoping that this would be more like that.
Yeah, I don't think it's a filmmaker's responsibility when they're adapting a book to be like 100% faithful. Like, I always think it's much more interesting when they bring like their own self and they bring their own twist on it, especially for something like Frankenstein that's been made like over 100 times.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. And I think that a filmmaker who's as singular as Guillermo, like, when you're watching a Guillermo del Toro movie, like nobody else's films look like that, that inevitably he wouldn't like. And I was talking to my husband about this the other day too, where I was kind of like, I was like, immediately the first film that I could think of that I know is super, super faithful to the book is Rosemary's Baby. And I was like, kind of like ruminating with him on like the kind of conundrum, right? Of like when moving between mediums, when artistic mediums, do we have an obligation to be faithful to the source material, or is that something that's kind of an outdated idea? Of why is it so important to make it like the thing that came before it, right? Like, I think. Go ahead.
What Guillermo del Toro said is that when you're adapting a book, it's like marrying a widow. Where you have to like respect what came before, but you and your wife also got to get it on.
Wow. From his mouth to God's ears. Incredible. Thank you for that. Well, that's the mic drop on that. So okay. So another thing that I was marveling over even more the second time around, and also marveling over just having the supplemental of the incredible coffee table book that they've made for this film. I think you have it. Do you have?
I do. I do have
Yeah. It. Sheila O'Malley, right, wrote the text, I think her name is. And I have, and I'm sure you do as well, some of the other coffee table style books that are based on his films, such as the one for The Shape of Water. I have one for The Devil's Backbone and one for Pacific Rim, and the beautiful one that they made for Crimson Peak. But this is like the most beautiful thus far. It's really quite spectacular. It's definitely also the most expensive thus far. But when you get the book, you can see why, right? Because it's larger. It's just, there's all these inserts in it, these beautiful inserts, like the page with the little booklet of all the Tiffany jewelry that they used for Mia. And it's so I got it before I was able to watch the film because, like I said, I wasn't able to see it in the theater. And I was looking at it, and I think it was like maybe the day before it came up on Netflix, and I had to like pause in the middle of looking at this book because I found it completely overwhelming. The amount of like work and artistry that went into this film, especially also as a long time Gothic obsessive. I think, similarly, to you, I think I've just been waiting for this. And I was so kind of moved, just even looking at this book, and even more so watching it the second time around, I was really noticing the detail more, right? Because the first time when you watch something, you kind of have to pay closer attention to everything. The second time, you can kind of like let your attention slide a little bit and take a better stock of the surroundings. And like this one, I think they really outdid themselves with this. With like every set is full of so many wonderful details. And I mean, Guillermo's a maximalist, right? I'm also a maximalist. I don't know if you are as well, but probably. A lot of us people who are into Gothic stuff are kind of maximalist minded because it's a maximalist medium. But yeah, I was just noticing it this time around and really loving it and just really being enamored of it all over again. And I was, wondering how you felt or if there was anything in particular you thought about that.
Yeah, like the stuff in the book, it was incredible seeing all of the detail for all of the costumes, like both in the book and in that documentary. Like when they show how they made all of the like fabrics with all of the like sort of fractal patterns to be like the insects that Elizabeth studies. And it was just incredible to see like how they did the that blue dress she wears, where it's like a bunch of brain scans and it gives the effect of being like watercolors. It's just that's my favorite costume in the whole movie. I think it's just beautiful.
But they had used like X-rays or something. Pictures of X-rays for that one. Yeah, I thought that was incredible.
Yeah, and it was cool to see like how like the costume designer worked with the set designer to like make things more cohesive. Like for that one dress that she wears, they took patterns from like the stone and put it in her dress. Just lots of really cool like attention to detail. Like this is a movie where I feel like all of the creative people involved just really loved being a part of it. And not just like Kate Hawley and Mike Hill, but like I've been seeing so many posts from people who've like worked on smaller things for the movie, like the guy who created the little cards that the blind man uses to teach his granddaughter, or the or the company that made the like frozen horses for the like battlefield scene. Like,
oh my god, that scene so amazing.
Yeah, it just seems like everybody loved working on this movie. And I suppose this is like heaven for creative people to get to work on something of this scale and something where they just get to make really cool stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there were just so many things like like in his laboratory, or like the laboratory, like the big water place.
The water tower.
The water tower, yeah. Thank you. in the water tower, and how like the Medusa on the wall, right? And even all of the little details like on the machinery that they built. Something I was so overwhelmed by, just like everything being practical. And in that documentary, The Anatomy Lesson, I was watching it last night. And at one point, Oscar Isaac is kind of saying, he said something that like resonated with me so much because it's been on my mind a lot lately. And he said that we're probably not going to get many more films like this, with just so much attention to detail and so much like physical artistry, right? Like, and it reminded me even of like the Lord of the Rings, where like everything was like made by hand and like everything feels tangible, like you can reach out and touch it. And I remember you left a little review for The Anatomy Lesson, and you said that you had wondered when you were watching it if that the little like kind of half guy in the lecture hall who he's using to kind of demonstrate what he can do, you were like, I wonder if he's a puppet. And thankfully, you know, we get all this footage in that documentary of all these details, and that being a puppet that had puppeteers, and then they built the entire ship like from the ground up.
And they put it on like what's it called? A gavel, so it can move. Like, that's insane. They built that thing in just like a parking lot.
Yeah. And I was like, go ahead.
And I was watching like a Q&A with Martin Scorsese, and the woman who was like the production designer, she talked about how the batteries in the lab, they were all done practically, like they changed color like on set.
Oh, I love it.
And that I was like, wow, I assumed that was just done with CGI, but just the amount of stuff that's done practically is insane.
Yeah. And so much rich symbolism in all of the detail as well. Like, I know Guillermo has mentioned a lot, you know, kind of his feeling of preoccupation with his own Catholic upbringing, and that being like very, very much so present in the symbolism for this particular film. Like, I don't know if I would say that it's as present in some of his other work, but like this one, I feel like that was just like he really went with the symbolism of like the Catholicism aspect, and like with the creature being on this kind of like crucifix like thing, and kind of like his almost like Tower of Babylon, which I personally as a tarot reader interpreted as the Tower card in the tarot, which I just like was obsessed with thinking that that's what he meant. I know it probably isn't, but you never know. I'm sure he's familiar with the tarot, you know. There were several things in this film that I just thought were like strong tarot card imagery, which was maybe just my own particular hope, but
yeah, I'm sure he is, because like Nightmare Alley has a lot of tarot stuff in there.
Oh yeah, that's true.
The
That's
Hanged Man.
Yeah, I really enjoyed Nightmare Alley, which maybe is a weird thing to say about that movie because it's quite dark. But that movie, thankfully, I did get to see in the theater, which I thought was I was happy that happened, because I know that movie, it like came out in 2022 or 2023. I'm sorry, I can't quite recall. But I feel like in his filmography, that one really gets overlooked, maybe because of when it came out and it was like the pandemic was winding down or whatever. But
it came out the same weekend as that Spider-Man movie with all 3 Spider-Men in it.
God damn it. Yeah. Maybe his most underrated film to date. I'm not sure what other people would say, but yeah, that's a great point.
Yeah, I mean, I'm admittedly kind of ignorant about a lot of religious things, so I'm sure there's a lot of stuff like related to Catholicism that I just didn't pick up. But I was reading the screenplay book that they released, and there's actually like even more religious imagery. Like, if they make it more apparent that Elizabeth sees him as sort of a Christ figure. Like there's a scene in the screenplay that's not in the movie, where she is still in the convent and she kisses the feet of a Jesus statue, and then later when she sees the creature for the first time, she does the same thing to him. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, when they first meet, that doesn't actually happen, which would explain why the first scene was cut out of the movie. But they did shoot it, because you see like parts of it in the documentary, and then Guillermo del Toro talked about how that would be included as a deleted scene in the future physical release of the movie, which I'm assuming is going to be through the Criterion collection.
Yeah, I hope so. Do it up. Yeah, I had read about that as well, that there was the convent scene that people were hoping might be included in the supplementals in that, or maybe even an extended cut with it or something. I was just so relieved to hear that we're getting a physical media release for this film. I was kind of like, I don't really care who releases it. I'm sure it'll be great, because I'm sure Guillermo is going to be obsessive about it, as he is his wont. But yeah, I was just so relieved, because we can't just let things languish on Netflix, you guys.
Yeah, Netflix doesn't really do physical releases that often.
Yeah, I mean, I would assume the only reason this is getting one is because of Guillermo having a lot of clout these days, compared to maybe some other filmmakers. And I know, like, Mike Flanagan got, like, one of his films, Hush, released finally on physical media, but that was only after, I think, Netflix had finally lost the rights. The contract for that film had ended on Netflix. So I don't know. I don't know how it works, but like, why does one filmmaker get to do it and not another? I mean, it's interesting, but I'm just happy that it's apparently happening. Hopefully it doesn't take too long. That was the other thing I felt kind of worried about. I was like, not like 2 years from now, though. Like, like how long do we have to wait for that?
Yeah, I'm trying to think of how long it took for Pinocchio to get released by Criterion. Yeah. I feel it wasn't that long, but I don't really remember.
Maybe like a year, maybe less than that. Yeah, I don't know. Here's what I was thinking about, though, Charisse. I was thinking how it was just announced that later on, in the first few months of 2026, I think we're up to the March releases, because like Criterion will like announce their future releases kind of in a few months in advance. And they just dropped the next round. I think it's for March. And the first one was Killers of the Flower Moon. And I know everyone's just been waiting so long for like a physical release of that. And I was like, it's been a while since that movie came out. So I was just like, oh God, I hope that's not how long it's going to take for Frankenstein. I doubt it will, but that was like my fear, I was like,
oh wow, there was never any physical release for that movie at all before?
No.
Oh wow.
Yeah, people were surprised too, like, I'm sure like Scorsese has a lot of say, but the other weird thing about that one is that Apple TV bought the rights for that one, and they've traditionally been very close-fisted about their rights, as far as I can see thus far. Like, apparently none of their films that they've bought the rights to have been released. This is maybe the first one for physical media. So yeah, like for instance, like Joel Cohen's Tragedy of Macbeth with Denzel Washington, it is a movie that I really loved that Apple owns the rights to, and there's still no physical release for that. So yeah, I don't know. They're like weird about it. They're the other ones besides Netflix. They get left out of that conversation, but they're very much to blame for that as well. So
yeah,
anyway,
maybe Scorsese maybe had that like in his contract or something. Like, in order for them to be able to buy that movie, they had to promise a physical release.
Hopefully. That should just be something that like they always kind of like have to write into contracts now, because like clearly it has to be like forced upon them or something. I don't know. Make it happen. But I've been looking at my notes here, and another thing I wanted to mention, kind of about like the set design and the details and everything is, I just love the Medusa head so much on the wall, because that's like kind of symbolism that I think might go over some people's heads a little bit, but obviously very much so in line with Guillermo's preoccupations, and this one being Medusa obviously being misunderstood as a monster. I thought it was so just affecting for me. And that obviously being, part of the legacy of this story as well. the creature being misunderstood by many to this day as the monster in this story. And I know a lot of people were like very kind of like miffed about what they felt was maybe not a lot of subtlety, right, in Guillermo's version here with like text via subtext and that kind of like larger discussion of like outright it being stated several times in this film that Victor is obviously the monstrous one in this dynamic, right? But I was also like, okay, first of all, I have two thoughts about this, and I would love to hear your thoughts as well. But firstly, I think that the Gothic genre is not necessarily a super subtle genre. I think maybe that's not some people's bag, right? I definitely have come across people who are kind of very much so not fans of Gothic stuff, which is totally fine. Like everybody's going to like whatever they like. But I do think that like Guillermo's very much so operating with a very deep understanding of this particular genre, and that wanting it to be very much so of this genre in a really big way, right? So that's one argument I would make, is that I just think that, he's going for operatic scale, right? So he's playing to everybody in the back. But the other thing I think is worth noting is that many other film versions of this story like are not that great about pointing out in subtle or unsubtle ways that Victor is the monster in this story, right? Like I think a lot of people in the legacy of like the Carla version and everything is kind of like over time become this thing where like that's like the monstrous looking thing is the monster. It's so literal, right? And it's like so obviously not what Shelley was doing in her novel. And I almost feel like this was Guillermo setting the record straight, where he's like, just for the record, Victor Frankenstein is the monstrous intellect in this tale, like, and I would love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, like, on one hand, I get the criticism of having William be like, you are the monster. And it's kind of like, the rat at the end of the Departed moment, it's a metaphor for obviousness. But on the other hand, like, whoever said, Gothic fiction was subtle, like,
right.
If anyone has ever read The Castle of Otranto, that's like the least subtle book of all time. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I mean, also I think Felix Kammerer, I'm not sure how to say his name,
I think that's
who plays William. I think he just is so good in that scene that he pulls it off, even though it's like very much the obvious thing to say. I agree. I think he pulls it off very well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I thought so too, especially watching it the second time around a few days ago when I was revisiting it. I was like, he does really go with that, honestly. Like that could have been really hammy, but it's really not in context.
I think he's just great in the film overall. I think he kind of gets kind of a thankless role where he doesn't really get to do anything exciting. He's just kind of there for most of the movie. But I think he does a really great job with what he's given.
Yeah, I think so too. I also like Felix Kammerer. He mentions in that documentary that he felt like he was actually given a lot more in the role than he anticipated when he read the script, and I thought that was lovely. He was like, no, he made this a real character, and I really appreciated that. So
yeah, because in the book, William is like a little kid who's basically just there to die. Mm-hmm. He's basically just like a plot point more than a character in the book, and they expanded a lot in the movie. Him and Elizabeth, like she is much more of an interesting character in this movie than she is in the book. Because in the book she's really not part of the story for most of the time. She mostly just is there to write letters to Victor, and then is another person for the monster to kill.
Yeah, I was so happy with the changes with Elizabeth and with Mia Goth's portrayal in this, and her performance I thought was just really wonderful. I love that scene. So one of my favorite scenes in this is that one where she is kind of down in the catacombs with the creature and is kind of like, he gives her the leaf, and then she's coming back up, and Victor's just kind of like sitting there like grumpy. like stalking her
with his
almost.
robe open.
With his robe open. He's going to try one last time, you know? After she's already been like, nah. With his green robe, yeah. It's just wonderfully staged. I think it's very gothy, and I just really like it. But also, I think the performances from him and Mia are great in it. Their little kind of like exchange, right? And I just love they're both very emotive. I love that about both of them. You see like Mia's performance in Pearl, where she's just so wonderfully unhinged. I love Pearl. And yeah, I think, and Oscar's like really given it I'm so happy that he's finally been cast in like a truly gothic film. I think he's like just so perfect for it. He's really got the gravitas. And really channels it in a big way for this, but he's so kind of full of disdain in this, but also like even in his longing, he can't help but be kind of like disdainful of her, which I think is something that she sussed from him like immediately, that like she could never have him for a lover. He would always treat her badly, in other words. And you see that in this wonderful exchange between the two of them. It's not like a super consequential scene, but I do feel like it's wonderful character work from both of them. It really showcases that I think that they are really well cast in this film. I know I read some people felt like Oscar is miscast in this. I think that you could read it that way if you're trying to compare him to the Frankenstein of the book, but I don't think that Guillermo was approaching his character like that really at all from the beginning. He wanted to do something different, and I think in that respect, Oscar is perfectly cast.
Yeah, I mean, Victor in the book, he doesn't really have like an overt personality. He's kind of a blank slate, and so in different film adaptations, he's so different in every role, because they can pretty much just make him whatever they want. Like in the James Whale version, he's like, he goes full mad scientist. In the Hammer versions, you got Peter Cushing playing him like kind of a bitchy aristocrat.
Yeah, he's great in those.
Yeah, and then you got like Harry Treadaway in Penny Dreadful, where he's like this loner drug addict. Yeah, and then now you got Oscar, who plays him like a performative genius. Like, aren't you so glad that I'm showing you like how smart I am and everything that I can do?
Guillermo kept comparing him to like a rock star. Like he kept mentioning Mick Jagger, I think, in his kind of like mannerisms and his costumes, which I thought was so interesting.
Yeah, and like so many scenes, he's like just like playing it up. It's like, is this guy for real? Like even in the scene after the lecture hall when he is just talking to Christoph Waltz for the first time, he's like speaking like he's still speaking in front of a crowd. Like, yes, but what did you think? Like he's just performing for his audience of one in that scene.
Yeah, the whole performance from him is like that, and I, for one, think it's fantastic.
Yeah, for sure. I've seen a lot of people complain about his accent. I think his accent's fine.
I don't feel that way. Nope.
Yeah, he's making like big choices.
Yeah, but like there's an understanding there, if you ask me, of the genre trappings, right? And what Guillermo is going for versus what someone else's interpretation of a story may be. And like you said, them mentioning kind of telenovelas and that just operatic level of emotion. Hence me wanting to kind of begin this episode, with that quote from Guillermo that we need to not be afraid of emotion. That it's kind of like part of the malaise of our time, to get a little bit meta for a minute, I think is we're distancing ourselves so much from the way that we truly feel. And I think Guillermo, one of the things I personally like about him so much as a filmmaker is that he's just never afraid of that. And I think what he began with Crimson Peak, he's kind of put the final flourish on with Frankenstein. I'm happy to be here. You know, like that's how I felt the first time I watched this. I'm getting like kind of emotional even saying this, honestly. I was like, I'm just happy to be here, to get to see this, to get to witness this at its birth, you know. I think a lot of us, I think maybe like you're the other person on Letterboxd besides me who like really loves Gothic filmmaking and Gothic storytelling, as far as I've been able to suss. Because I'm always looking for those who are like me in that respect. I'm like, are you a little bottom dwelling catacombs inhabitant like me? No, but yeah. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah,
Mike accusing you of being a gothic.
No, you're absolutely right. Like, yeah, I mean, what I love about Gothic horror is that, you know, all of the Gothic horror movies I've seen have always had the best, like, production design and costume design. They're always really sexy and emotional. And I think, you know, this movie is all of that and more.
What more could you ask for, truly? I don't know what some people want. not to talk too much about the naysayers. Yeah, I'm just convinced in the end that this is just not the genre for some people, right? Which is totally okay, but it is for some of us. And I think for those of us who love this shit, you know, Guillermo really, he gave it everything he had. And he knew if he was going to do it, he had to put everything into it. He had to do everything he could to realize this. But then at the end of the day, you know, you get like this incredibly nuanced and moving performance from Jacob Elordi. That's I think the real, you know, heart of the film. I was so glad that it ends on him the way that it does. I felt in the end, you know, it was we were where we should be, which was back at the emotional center. Any final thoughts, Charisse, that you have on this wonderful film?
A leaf for me? Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I think I've logged this movie like 14 times so far. It's entered in my like top 5 most watched films on Letterboxd already.
How many hours is that? 14 times? Oof. Wow. It's 2.5, almost 2.5 hours long.
Oof. Too many hours,
terrible, but a lot. Like at least an entire day, like a day and night, like a 24-hour, probably close to that. Wow.
Yeah, I'm probably done seeing it on the big screen, which is too bad, but you know, it's on Netflix, so I'll probably log it a few more times at least this year. Mm-hmm. Not this year. This year's almost over. But
yeah, I'm excited to. It's funny because like it is pretty long, but I am also excited to watch it again. And just appreciate it. It's one of those films that you feel like every time you see it, maybe you'll get something new out of it. That's the best.
Yeah, one thing we didn't mention was like Christoph Waltz and his whole storyline. Yeah, I have a theory that that Elizabeth knows that he's sick the whole time, and that a lot of her actions in the movie are because she's trying to help him.
Oh, fascinating. I'll have to watch it with that in mind next time.
Yeah, because like every time they're not together, she's asking about him. You know, is there anything from my uncle? Is my uncle here?
Your Mia Goth is incredible.
Yeah, and you know, when she's on her way to the water tower for the first time, you know, William is, you know, reassuring her that everything's going to be okay, but she has no idea what's going on in the water tower at that point. So I think because she hadn't heard from her uncle, she thinks that something's wrong.
Yeah, fascinating. Great theory. Yeah, I think he's great in this. I like his you know, this new character that was kind of written for him. I like him. I mean, he's a great actor, so.
I think he's got one of the most tragic storylines in the whole movie. Like, he's...
Yeah.
like one of the saddest points in the whole movie is when he's trying to convince Victor to put his brain, presumably, in Jacob Elordi's body, and he does his little callback to Victor being like, you know, please always helps.
Yeah. I only realized that the second time around. I was like, oh, that was a callback.
Yeah, like, he says it with such desperation in his voice. It's just devastating.
It's much once you realize that, it's much sadder in context. And honestly, that scene is like when he falls down it's very harrowing. Like, it's all just really well done.
Yeah, I mean, that's probably a better way to die than dying horribly of syphilis, though.
That's true.
Like, did you ever watch that show, The English, with Emily Blunt?
No.
Oh, well, spoiler alert, her character's got syphilis.
Oh, no.
And at the end of
I've never heard of this.
And at the end of the series, like, her face is, like, gone, and she's wearing
Are you shitting me? Is it like a gothic series, or?
It's like a Western.
Oh, okay.
Wow. I think it's on Amazon. It's her and Chesky Spencer, and she's trying to track down the guy who gave her syphilis because I think she wants to kill him. It's been a minute since I've seen it.
Yeah, that's respectable.
But it's just horrifying.
That's awful.
Like, that has to have been one of the most horrible ways to die back in the day. And now you can just get like a shot and it's gone.
Hey, listen, modern medicine.
Progress.
Well, thank you, Charisse, for being on with me. I appreciate it so much.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I was surprised you asked.
No, I knew it had to be you. Like, if I was going to have a guest talking about this film, you know, I was like, it's got to be Charisse. Like, this
I would have been insulted if you asked anybody else.
Rightly so. I would not dream of it. Like, I really wanted to talk, and because the film, you know, has definitely had like kind of it has had like I would say a mostly positive reaction, but I've definitely noticed, you know, it has some people who kind of like seem to not like it or feel mixed feelings about it. I really wanted to talk to somebody who felt as enthusiastic about it as I do, and kind of like as excited that it's here and that it exists now and all of that. So yeah, can't thank you enough.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
I just want to thank Charisse one more time for joining me for this episode. I hope everyone enjoyed it. I hope to have Charisse back on at some point in the future. And on that note, as above, so below, and peace out until next time. This podcast is produced by David Settle. He also made the music.